This is the sermon for May 15th, 2022, and I'm talking about Jesus, the Good Shepherd. So first from John 10:11 through 18. Jesus says, "I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd puts the sheep before himself, sacrifices himself if necessary. A hired man is not a real shepherd. The sheep mean nothing to him. He sees a wolf come and runs for it, leaving the sheep to be ravaged and scattered by the wolf. He's only in it for the money. The sheep don't matter to him. I am the Good Shepherd. I know my own sheep, and my own sheep know me. You need to know that I have other sheep in addition to those in this pen. I need to gather and bring them too. Then it will be one flock, one shepherd. I freely lay down my life." And then Psalm 23 from the Message. "God, my shepherd, I don't need a thing. You have bedded me down in lush meadows. You find me quiet pools to drink from. True to your word, you let me catch my breath and send me in the right direction. Even when the way goes through Death Valley, I'm not afraid when you walk at my side. Your trusty shepherd's crook makes me feel secure. You serve me a 6-course dinner right in front of my enemies. You revive my drooping head. My cup brims with blessing. Your beauty and love chase after me every day of my life. I'm back home in the house of God for the rest of my life." Well, I heard a wonderful 11-minute sermon from Nadia Bolz-Weber on these Good Shepherd passages, and you can Google that and find it. She preaches it at a church and graciously provided that recording for us to watch. She talked about how sermons are an art that is a dialogue between the sermon giver and the listeners. And so it's far more than just reading something. So one thing that stuck with me from her sermon, though, and that will always stick with me, is her comment that addiction is a false shepherd, a wolf in shepherd's clothing. Now, she dealt with severe addiction, alcohol and drugs, both, I believe. And she's been very open about how her life reached bottom and how God helped her out and how 12-step groups helped her out. And so I love listening to her. But anyway, I wanted to say that addiction doesn't care one whit for the person. It only cares about continuing the use of the substance. It doesn't even matter what the substance is. It could be ego, like I've talked about. Self-centeredness is a substance that we are addicted to, and we need to work at not being addicted to ego. So the brain has this weird Velcro thing that attaches increasing desire to a substance or to ego, with more needed for less reward, leading to increasing the amount of the substance in a never-ending loop. And the more we do it, the behavior, or the more we take the substance, or the more we're involved in ego, the less reward we get, and the more we feel we need it, until it destroys our health, or in this case, it destroys our happiness. So I want to focus today on Jesus' ethic of care for everyone. Jesus is clear that he is the Good Shepherd caring for the sheep, even the sheep beyond this enclosure. How many times have we focused on ourselves to the exclusion of others? The world tells us we are the ones who truly matter. Look out for number one. That self-centeredness is another wolf in shepherd's clothing, and we've all done it. We've all done it. That's why we need Jesus as our example. Jesus freely laid down his life for the sheep to protect them, to protect us from the wolves in the world. Jesus' example for us is more than laying down his life. And in John 10:10, which is right before today's passage, Jesus says, I have come that you may have life, abundant life. What a wonderful saying we have from Jesus. So Sam Harris, an app, he's a neurological researcher and researches mindfulness and teaches on it. And I have his app. And he asks this: is there a form of happiness beyond the mere repetition of pleasure and the avoidance of pain? Is there a happiness that doesn't depend on having one's favorite foods available, or friends available, or loved ones within arm's reach, or good books to read, or something to look forward to on the weekend? Is it possible to be happy before anything happens, before one's desires get gratified in spite of life's difficulties? In the very midst of physical pain, can we be happy? Old age, disease, and even death, can we experience happiness? We're all, in some sense, Sam Harris says, living our answer to that very question. And many of us are living as though the answer is no. We live, and our actions seem to say there's only the repeating of pleasures and the avoidance of pain. There's nothing more profound than seeking our satisfaction, moment after moment. Just keep your foot on the gas, Sam Harris says, until you run out of road. I love that expression. That would be the eternal seeking of happiness and avoiding of pain, and doing it just for ourselves. Just keep your foot on the gas until you run out of road. And yet there's an alternative, which is mindfulness. Rather than simply identifying with every thought that pops into mind, instead we glimpse the alternative, which is mindfulness and concern for others, again and again. So we all seek happiness and we all want to avoid suffering, and that is just a truth about being human. Those who observe a wider view of the world than we do in Little Davis and Duran notice that our middle-class wealth leads us to be less happy than those in other parts of the world that have less material goods. Now, I know that's counterintuitive. We would normally be more happy than those who are the poor. But sometimes when they're not weighed down by all the stuff that we're weighed down, but they're not worried in all the ways that we're worried. And so sometimes they can be happier. Now, true suffering, out of need, out of hunger, out of not having medical care, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having a freedom that comes from not being weighed down by more and more stuff. If we worry more, then we ask, what will happen? How will we make it? What happens if? Those questions run through our mind because of our affluence. A few of us know how to use our wealth intelligently, not in luxury, not in increasing luxury, but in helping others. Many of us get caught in acquiring more, and we lose even the dream of happiness. There are people that have constant anxiety, discontent, frustration. They're all worried about others who have more than they do. And they have uncertainty and depression as that constant greed for more and more wealth. They feel like more will help them to be happy. Do you know how people define the wealthy? Do you know how people define being wealthy? It's earning 20% more than I do right now. And everyone, no matter how much they have, defines the wealthy as those who earn 20% more. And we think we'll be wealthy if we can earn 20% more. It just goes on and on. Yeah, nobody admits to being wealthy because it's those other people that are actually wealthy. Compared to the 2/3 world, we are wealthy. In most of the world, there is waterborne diseases, parasites, things like that. For us, the most prominent disease is stress-induced disease. Go ask any doctor. They're more common in our culture. In cities, urban dwellers live in close proximity to high numbers of people, and yet we don't depend on each other. We certainly don't in small towns. We value independence. We value machines and services. We value having one of everything for ourselves so that we don't have to share anything. We aren't interdependent in the way that people can be interdependent. I think the Amish really get it. They know that they must need each other in order to be happy. And so they shy away from things that make them unneeding of others, not needing others. Yeah, so people are worried, they have greater stress, they feel maybe they're 2 paychecks away from not having what they need, and the greater stress leads them into ill health. When we become dependent on an employer and we can't get out of a bad situation, our stress goes through the roof. And so there are lots of ways that if we really looked out for one another, we might have less stress. So, yeah, if we want to be independent, does that lead to happiness? At first it seems to. But then it doesn't, actually, because then we worry about having more and more stuff, taking care of more and more stuff, and we worry about a thief breaking in and stealing our stuff. George Carlin has a great routine about stuff and how we need more and more stuff. An ethic of care, the shepherd for the sheep, and the sheep, us, for each other. An ethic of care helps us remember that more than just our happiness matters. Others' happiness and avoidance of suffering matters. And I love this. The Dalai Lama said this. If others are not important for my happiness, then their happiness is not important for me. So if I'm completely independent of others, then I don't care if they're happy or not. It's just all that matters is that I'm happy. It's more fierce independence. So in India, and I'm not sure where this is in India, but I read this. If someone enters your home to visit with you and you're not there, the expectation is they would help themselves to a meal while they wait for you to return. What a great concept. What a way of showing hospitality. You're not even there, and they'll be able to eat while they're waiting for you to come. That's in a culture where having enough for each day is the goal. So here's the central idea of this ethic of care for all the sheep. Given power by God to care for others by saying no thank you to self-centeredness, we cultivate a concern for others in all places, and we also cultivate a concern for the earth. We want the earth to be happy. We want the ecology to be happy. We want other creatures to be happy, just as we want that for ourselves. So imagine that you're constantly having a negative, stressful thinking, and someone bumps into you and they snap at you and they say, "Watch where you're going." And if you're in a negative mindset, you'll snap back at them. And a fist fight could emerge. But what if you're thinking positive thoughts, you're thinking concern for them, you're thinking blessings for them, and they snap at you, "Watch where you're going." Instead, you could say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Is there some way I can help?" That's going to really make them angry in some ways, but yeah. Instead of being rude, we can offer blessings. Another example is children. Imagine that a child gets into a fight with another child while they're playing. The winner of the fight might feel temporarily better at the victory, but then going home will have a greater sense of ill at ease and unhappiness as time goes on, and feeling alienated from self, alienated from the other that they just won against. You can see how that child that wins doesn't feel quite right about things. Much better for happiness overall if children can learn to play together, if adults can learn to play together. So everyone seeks happiness and everyone seeks to avoid suffering. With Jesus as the Good Shepherd, our interest is not a selfish one. We put others' interests in seeking happiness and avoiding suffering right alongside our own. We aren't being asked to deny ourselves 100% every day for the rest of your life. That wouldn't be a good long-term plan. Maybe it works for somebody, but I wouldn't have the ability to stick to that. It's much better if we can use mindfulness to look out for the happiness of others right alongside of looking out for our own happiness. And being happy is not compatible with negative thinking, with what the Buddhists call afflictive emotions. The negativity, the hatred, the wishing ill to others, those are afflictive emotions. Happiness is not compatible. Imagine two neighbors that are in a fight. And imagine, okay, so my neighbor wants to hurt me and plots and plans how to get back at me and how to hurt me because of a perceived slight. Are they happy? And what if I shrug and say, well, I only wish good? And what if I only do good for my neighbor? I can be happy whether they are or not. And perhaps they would catch the happiness from me. It would be contagious. And so then why not both neighbors could be happy? Do you see how different that is from wishing ill? So may God bless us, and may Jesus, the Good Shepherd, help us all. Amen.